Hello, everybody. Welcome to my one podcast special where we are going to be talking about female rap, sexuality, and the double standards that shape them. I am calling this podcast episode WAP, Words, and Womanhood, the Politics of Female Rap. Before we get into the history, the backlash, and the power of women owning their narratives in hip-hop, I wanted to share a personal anecdote that inspired me to do this topic. So, one day I was in the car with my dad, and as usual, I was in charge of the music. Megan Thee Stallion had just dropped a new album, so naturally, one of her songs came on. Almost immediately, my dad looked disgusted. He said she was swearing too much, using the N-word too often, and being way too explicit. He called it gross and inappropriate. At first, I kind of brushed it off. I was like, okay, fine, maybe he's just being old school. But then an Eminem song came on. Now, I don't really listen to Eminem, but my dad, he really likes Eminem. So I sat there, and I couldn't help but notice Eminem's lyrics were way worse than anything Megan had just rapped about. He was saying things about women that were violent, degrading, and explicit. But here's the gag. My dad, he was singing along, nodding his head, completely unbothered. That moment really stuck with me. Why is it that when women, especially black women, rap about sex and power, they're seen as vulgar and inappropriate, but when men do it, it's just part of the culture? Why do we celebrate male rappers for pushing boundaries, but criticize women for doing the same? So that's what we're unpacking today. From the history of misogyny and rap to the backlash against artists like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. We're going to break down how race, gender, and power collide in hip-hop, and why female rappers continue to face an uphill battle when it comes to owning their sexuality. Let's get into it. So first I wanted to give a little background on the history of misogyny in rap music. So, hip-hop emerged in the 1970s as a form of expression for marginalized communities. However, as the genre evolved, especially with the rise of gangster rap in the late 80s and 90s, misogynistic themes became increasingly prevalent. Scholars like Adam and Fuller analyzed the portrayal of women in rap lyrics, categorizing them into three primary stereotypes. 1, hypersexual, 2, submissive, and 3, gold diggers. So I have examples for each of these stereotypes. For this section, I am just going to avoid saying a bunch of swear words. I don't want to offend anybody or make anyone uncomfortable. So, disclaimer. I have a few examples of songs from male rappers that reinforce these stereotypes: hypersexual, submissive, and gold diggers. For hypersexual, in Eminem's song Shake That, these are the lyrics. I'm looking for a girl with a body and a sexy strut. Wanna get it poppin', baby, step right up. Some girls, they act blank. Some girls are bout it. I'm looking for a girl that will do whatever the F I say. Every day she be giving it up. So here we can clearly see that Eminem is reinforcing the hypersexual stereotype. Women are depicted as objects of the male desire and reduced to their physical attributes. And it's really reinforcing the idea that a woman's worth is based on their sexuality. For the submissive stereotype, my example is Snoop Dogg's song Ain't No Fun, and here are the lyrics. I know the P is mine. I'ma F a couple more times, and then I'm through with it. There's nothing else to do with it. Pass it to the homie, now you hit it. 'Cause she ain't nothing but a bitch to me, and y'all know that bitches ain't shit to me. So here we see that Snoop Dogg is not really putting any worth on the woman, and he's depicting her as disposable, and that is often a theme we see within the submissive stereotype. Women are passive and dependent on men, and he doesn't need her. For the gold digger stereotype, I'm sure a lot of you know this one. My example is in Kanye West's Gold Digger. I understand that this song is pretty satirical, but it also reinforces the stereotype. The lyrics are, "If you ain't no punk, holla, we want prenup, we want prenup. If something that you need to have, because when she leave your ass, she gonna leave with half." Here we see, this is a pretty clear example. Women are seen as manipulative and only interested in men for the financial benefits, etc. So now I want to talk about, why do we see these stereotypes so often in rap music, and why is it so normalized? Where do these stereotypes come from? So the betrayal of women in rap music is deeply rooted in long-standing racist and sexist stereotypes. Two of the most prominent historical tropes that continue to shape perceptions are the Jezebel stereotype and the Sapphire stereotype. So the Jezebel stereotype, this stereotype emerged during slavery as a way to justify the sexual exploitation of Black women. It depicts them as hypersexual. I have an example of Too Short's 1989 song, "Don't Fight the Feeling," where it explicitly plays into the stereotype, reducing women to sexual objects with little agency, especially Black women. Here are the lyrics. "You could be black or you could be white. For a Black girl, it really don't take too long, but a white girl's always trying to turn you on. With a little squeeze, but it's just a tease. Give her some time, she'll be on her knees. Then I'll pick her up so I can work the butt. Baby, I just want to try to bust a nut." Excuse the language, I'm so sorry. So here we can see the Jezebel stereotype in full effect with these lyrics. It's sexualizing to women in general, but especially to Black women. It hypersexualizes them and makes them seem like they're easy or different than white women. Then we have the Sapphire stereotype, which is more commonly nowadays also known as the angry Black woman trope. And this stereotype characterizes Black women as aggressive, domineering, and difficult, which we see in many songs by male rappers. Now that we understand where these stereotypes come from in our history, I want to talk about the evolving of female rappers and the double standards that they face. So, despite the misogyny in early hip-hop, female rappers have recently reclaimed their narratives, and back then, using their music to challenge and subvert these stereotypes. However, when Black women assert their sexuality in rap, they face a unique form of criticism rooted in both sexism and racism that their male counterparts don't experience. Sociologist Tressie McMillan Cottom, in her book Thick, discusses how beauty functions as a form of capital. She argues that because Black women are often excluded from conventional beauty standards, their expressions of sexuality are seen as more transgressive than those of white women. For example, Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B's hit WAP sparked controversy for its explicit content. Critics labeled the song too vulgar, although similar themes by male artists, such as in Lil Wayne's Lollipop, where he literally says, "Lick it like a lollipop." We all know what you're referring to, Lil Wayne. It's been widely accepted and even celebrated. You hear it in the club, you hear it everywhere. And it's not met with the same backlash that Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B got. The double standard highlights the ways in which Black female rappers face harsher judgment when they engage with themes that are normalized for their male counterparts and white female artists as well. So, misogyny in rap, this is not a recent phenomenon. It is deeply ingrained in historical stereotypes, and these stereotypes have shaped the perception of Black women for centuries. And so female rappers continue to challenge these narratives. The industry and the broader society has to recognize and dismantle the double standards that persist. They may not even know that they're doing it. Clearly, WAP, I would not say, is an extremely child-friendly, appropriate song. However, it is no different to Eminem songs, Lil Wayne songs, And those are on the radio. Those are playing everywhere. So now, as I kind of mentioned before with the Jezebel stereotype, there is a difference to how white women are seen versus black women. And that is the same within the music industry as well. The music industry has long upheld a double standard in how it treats female artists based on their race. Scholar Christina Gupta analyzed how pop culture portrays women's sexuality, showing that white female artists are often allowed to express their sexuality in a way that black female artists cannot without facing backlash. I'm going to talk about the girl next door versus the hypersexual binary. So, white women in pop music are often marketed as pure or girl next door type figures, even when they incorporate sexual themes into their work. In contrast, black female artists in hip hop are frequently portrayed as inherently sexualized. This just reinforced the racist and sexist stereotypes. So I have some examples. These are some examples of white pop stars and their sexual expression. Madonna. Throughout her career, Madonna has used sexual themes to push artistic boundaries. Her 1990 Blonde Ambition tour and the 1992 Erotica album were controversial, but ultimately viewed as groundbreaking and empowering. Nobody had problems with her song Material Girl, even though that is a stereotype typically used against black women. A more recent example of this is Sabrina Carpenter with her hit Juno, where she literally says, "I'm so fucking horny." Oops, sorry, mind my language. "I'm so effing horny," and other music. Sabrina Carpenter embraces sensuality while maintaining an image that blends innocence with empowerment and rarely faces the same level of scrutiny as black female artists. Obviously, there's always going to be scrutiny against women expressing their sexuality, but it is not the same for white female artists versus black female artists. So we see that Madonna and Sabrina Carpenter, they have expressed their sexuality and it's worked for them. A little bit of backlash, but not the same level as backlash that black female rappers had faced. For example, Nicki Minaj, she is pretty known for her bold lyrics and visuals. She's repeatedly been criticized for being too explicit, especially in videos like Anaconda. The video was condemned as overly sexual, despite male rappers regularly producing similar content without the controversy. Another example, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, once again their hit WAP was met with outrage. Critics called it vulgar and harmful to young girls. However, male artists have long rapped about explicit content without similar levels of outrage. Megan Thee Stallion in general. Megan Thee Stallion exudes confidence in her sexuality, the inventor of a hot girl summer. She gets an insane amount of backlash for this. She's framed as excessive rather than empowering, reinforcing the idea that black women's sexuality is inherently problematic in our society. We can clearly see that black female artists expressing their sexuality are met with a different reception than white female artists. It's not as widely accepted. I wanted to talk about another phenomenon, about when male rappers talk about other female artists in their song, especially in this sexually explicit way, is different when they talk about a white woman versus a black woman in regards to public perception and public outrage. So, for example, in Future's song, Move That Dope, he has a line sexualizing artist Ciara. This is the lyric: "Ciara got the body like a supermodel, she gon' let me smash." This lyric clearly objectifies Ciara, reducing her to her physicality. However, unlike when Kanye West, also don't want to give Kanye West a platform, don't listen to Kanye West. However, unlike when Kanye West sexualized Taylor Swift in his song Famous with the line, "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex, why? I made that bitch famous," The public reaction to Future's song was notably less intense. I didn't see anything. However, Kanye's comment about Taylor Swift, a white woman, sparked widespread outrage. And I know the Swifties are crazy, but still. Never heard anything about Ciara. This Taylor thing went on for a very long time. And of course, Kanye was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't be sexualizing Taylor Swift or any other woman. But Future sexualization of Ciara was very overlooked and even accepted almost with the lack of backlash. And Kanye's act towards Taylor was met with intense backlash. So this disparity, I feel, highlights the racial double standard. While Taylor Swift's sexualization as a white woman was met with backlash, condemnation, the objectification of black women like Ciara is often normalized in rap, reflecting the broader issues of race and gender inequality. Black women's bodies are frequently commodified in ways that white women's are not, revealing the troubling double standard, unfortunately, in how women are treated in pop culture. So clearly, we can see that there is a stark contrast in how sexuality is perceived across the racial lines and how they stem from long-standing stereotypes. White women in pop are allowed to experiment with sensuality while still being seen as classy, artistic, cutesy, girl next door. However, black women in hip-hop face judgment rooted in racist tropes, like the Jezebel stereotype, portraying black women as hypersexual by nature. The double standard isn't just about gender, and I wanted to make that very clear. It is about how blackness is policed in mainstream media. Until the industry acknowledges and dismantles these biases, black female artists will continue to face disproportionate criticism for expressing the same themes that white pop stars are celebrated for. And I think this is important to note. When I started this project, I thought I would be mostly focusing on male rappers versus female rappers. However, now, after my research, I can see that that is not the case. White women are treated completely differently than black women in the music industry, and it is deeply rooted in racist stereotypes. So now that we've talked about the historical stereotypes that continue to bring black female artists down to this day, and we've discussed how we see that in current music, I want to go back a little bit. I want to talk about the rise of female gangster rappers and how they've paved the way for reclaiming power for black women to express themselves sexually in their music. So, in the 1990s, we saw the emergence of female gangster rappers who directly challenged the misogynistic narratives within hip-hop. Artists like Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, and Mia X, they all embraced profanity, rapped about sex on their own terms, and reclaimed derogatory language that had been used against them. And these three were really the trailblazers for current female artists. We see that they are reclaiming words that have been used against them from male artists such as bitch or hoe or whore. Lil' Kim, her 1996 album Hardcore was groundbreaking in its unapologetic sexuality. Songs like Crush You and Queen Bitch showcased her confidence, reversing the male gaze by presenting her sexuality as her own power rather than something for men to exploit. We see this a lot with current artists such as Megan Thee Stallion. Mia X is the first female rapper on No Limit Records. Mia X brought a raw, aggressive style that positioned her as an equal to her male counterparts. Her songs often address themes of survival, strength, and self-sufficiency in a male-dominated industry. Foxy Brown delivered sexually explicit lyrics with the same bravado as her male counterparts. She emphasized financial independence, actively going against the gold digger stereotype, and self-empowerment, rejecting the submissive female archetype often portrayed in male rap songs. I really just wanted to give a shout out to those ladies because they truly paved the way and they did it amazingly in a hugely male-dominated industry, more so than it is today. And I think it's important to note how we got here. So, scholar Hagen analyzed how these artists disrupted rap's male-centric industry by openly discussing sex and embracing traditionally masculine rap aesthetics, such as aggression, wealth flaunting. These artists, they refused to be relegated to passive roles in hip-hop, and so instead of being objectified, they controlled their own destiny, and they demanded respect. However, while the reclamation of words and stereotypes can be empowering and these artists are taking control of the narrative, theorist Gail Rubin presents a critical perspective. While reclaiming language and sexuality can be empowering, these acts still function within a capitalist framework. The music industry profits off the hypersexualization of Black women, even as it continues to criticize them for it. It's a double-edged sword. I'm going to reclaim this. I'm going to use these words. I'm going to lean into these stereotypes because I'm that girl. And I don't want people to say these things about me. I'm just going to say them myself. It's a theme we see a lot of minorities reclaiming words or stereotypes to empower themselves, to take control. However, then, are you seen as leaning into the stereotype? Oh, she really is this, and that. It's a double-edged sword, and it's a topic that's important to talk about, and we see it with artists like Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj took control of her image in her song Feeling Myself. She raps about financial and sexual power. She reclaims it, but she still faces scrutiny for being too explicit. An example of these lyrics is, taking trips with all them keys, car keys got B's, stinging with the queen bee, and we be whipping all that D. 'Cause we dope girls, we flawless, we the poster girls for all of this. This song got major backlash. Nicki Minaj is seen as inappropriate, and now she's trying to be powerful. Now she's reclaiming all these things. It seems like it can be a no-win scenario. Same with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion in their song WAP. I will be talking more in depth about WAP a little later. Sorry, I keep bringing it up. But WAP was both celebrated and condemned. So while Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, while they controlled the narrative, their success still relied on an industry that commodifies Black women's sexuality. So it brings us to the question, are these artists truly reclaiming their power, or are they simply being packaged and sold in a way that ultimately benefits men in the industry? While female gangster rappers have undeniably shifted hip-hop culture, the structures of capitalism, patriarchy, they continue to shape how their work is perceived and profited from. However, ultimately their influence is undeniable. The original female gangster rappers, they carved out a space in the industry that was never built for them. They shouldn't have been successful, but they were, and they continue to redefine what reclaiming power looks like in hip-hop. All right, we are finally gonna talk about the song by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, WAP, the song that inspired me to do this whole project, the song that had my dad in shambles. There is a double standard in hip-hop. In 2020, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's song WAP became one of the most talked about moments in music history. Not just because of its explicit lyrics, but because of the intense backlash it received. I don't know if any of you remember this, but I definitely do. As a Megan Thee Stallion Cardi B fan, I loved the song. I remember streaming it over and over and over. However, conservative politicians, media commentators, and even some older hip-hop artists deemed the song WAP as disgusting and a bad influence on young women. I think it is crazy that one song ended up on every conservative podcast ever and media outlets and Fox News, and it got so big and caused so much outrage when this song is about females taking control of how they are sexually how they are sexually seen, how they are sexual, basically. Speaking of conservatives commenting on the song WAP, I thought I would just add this tidbit in here because I genuinely just thought it was funny. I thought everyone should know this. So Ben Shapiro, you probably know him. He's a conservative commentator. He has a podcast and stuff, and he is very right-leaning. When he's heard the song WAP, he reacted to that song on his podcast, and he suggested that vaginal moisture is some sort of medical discharge, a symptom that something isn't right. Yeah, he really said that. And obviously that was him reacting to potentially the song title. WAP is an acronym. I don't think I need to lay it out for you. I think you know what it means. So I thought that was funny, and I would just put that in there. Anyways, male rappers have rapped about sex in explicit details for decades without facing the same level of outrage. Songs like Too Short's Freaky Tales and Snoop Dogg's Ain't No Fun, they've objectified women without any significant pushback. So what is the difference? Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion weren't being objectified. That is the difference. They were the ones in control of the narrative. So it isn't it isn't the explicit sexual lyrics necessarily. Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, they weren't being objectified. And that's the only difference you can find between songs like Freaky Tales and Ain't No Fun and the song WAP. So for all of this backlash, for it not to be even about sexually explicit lyrics, what is it? The backlash is rooted in control, not lyrics. Scholar Towns argues that the backlash against WAP wasn't really about the lyrics. It was about control. Black women openly expressing their sexuality challenges the traditional power structures that expect them to be passive rather than active participants in their own pleasure. The controversy, it really exposed the deep-rooted discomfort with female sexual agency that our society has, especially when it is Black women that are at the forefront. Once again, enforcing the Jezebel stereotype, which has historically hypersexualized Black women while simultaneously punishing them for embracing that sexuality on their own terms. This is what I thought was very interesting. For the song WAP, there was so much controversy. It was talked about everywhere. There was criticisms from Black men in hip-hop. Interestingly, some of the harshest criticisms came from within the hip-hop community itself. Black male rappers and cultural commentators were among those who spoke out against WAP, highlighting a broader issue. While men in hip-hop have built their careers on explicit content, they often react negatively when women, particularly Black women, take ownership of the same themes. For example, CeeLo Green called the song shameless and said that female rappers today lack discretion. Okay, CeeLo, let's look at your song Closet Freak. First of all, the title. Everyone knows what you're talking about. It's not very discreet. In this song, CeeLo sings about a woman who is hidden away and implies that she has secret desires. The lyrics include, "You're my closet freak, I got you locked up in the room, show me what you want to do." Not very discreet, CeeLo. We also have Snoop Dogg decided to commentate about WAP. Despite his history of explicit lyrics, he claimed that WAP was too much and that women should leave some things to the imagination. That is diabolical. So Snoop, what were you leaving to the imagination when in your song you said, "Guess who's back in the motherfucking house?" Mother effing house, with a fat blank in your mother effing mouth. Sorry for the vulgar, really just trying to prove a point here. But what was left up to the imagination there, Snoop? Then we have 50 Cent. 50 Cent mocked the song on social media, implying it was degrading rather than empowering. Okay, 50 Cent. How about when you said in your song, just a little bit, she's got a body like a Coke bottle. I'm addicted to the way she's shaking that ass. So, wouldn't you say that's a little degrading, 50 Cent, to compare a woman to a Coke bottle? Literal object. I would say that's a little degrading. I don't know about you. So here, I know that was kind of a fun little segment where we kind of just bashed these male rappers for being hypocritical, but seriously, these male rappers who are in this business, have been in this business and been very successful, are criticizing. They're not criticizing each other. They're not criticizing other male artists, but they're criticizing the song WAP. Why? Because Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B took control of their own sexuality. It's not about the lyrics. It's about the control. So what do female rappers do? Sexual expression in a market-driven industry seems almost impossible to navigate for a black female rapper. Stephen Veloci points out that while society's become more accepting of sexual expression, it remains market-driven. Female rap is only allowed when it's profitable, but even then it faces way more scrutiny than male rap. So what should female rappers do? The music industry profits off the hypersexualized imagery of black women, but still dictates the term under which female artists can engage in it. Record labels, streaming platforms, and radio stations decide what content is marketable, reinforcing the idea that women's sexuality is something to be controlled and commodified, rather than freely expressed. So, the real issue behind the WAP debate. Never thought I would say that sentence in my life. Ultimately, the outrage over WAP was never really about the explicit lyrics. It's about who gets to have the sexual agency. The backlash reflects a long history of discomfort with black women owning their sexuality. It's true. A reality that persists even in an industry that profits from that very image. It's ridiculous. So, till female rappers are given the same freedom as their male counterparts, the politics of female sexuality in hip-hop will remain a battleground. It'll remain a fight. And I hope to see that change. And I'm hoping to see artists like Megan and Cardi and Doechii, another good one right now, big fan. It's a battle. But these women, they are really working hard to reclaim, to take control in an industry that profits off of them, but also polices them. So we went over the history. We went over the modern times. We went over the song WAP. We went over a lot of things, but in the end, this is an ongoing battle for female rappers. These female rappers have always had to fight for space in the industry that profits from their sexuality, while also condemning them for it. They challenge norms, disrupt traditional power structures, and reclaim their narratives, but they have to do so within a system that still seeks to police and control them. It almost feels like an impossible task. Even though these women are very successful, they are still scrutinized. They still get major backlash. However, the backlash against WAP wasn't just about the explicit lyrics. It reflected a broader double standard that has existed for decades. Male rappers have long been free to be as explicit as they want, while female rappers are scrutinized, shamed, and deemed inappropriate. But it isn't just about gender, it's also about race. White female pop stars are often marketed as innocent or the girl next door, given the freedom to experiment with sexuality in ways that black female rappers are not. The policing of black women's bodies and voices is deeply rooted in American history, and the music industry is continuing to reflect these biases. And that brings me back to the moment in the car with my dad. The inspiration for this project. His shock at Megan Thee Stallion, compared to his silence when Eminem played, wasn't just about explicit lyrics. It was about a deeper cultural bias. One that says men can be explicit, but women cross a line when they do it. And even more than that, it's a bias that disproportionately affects black women, whose sexuality is viewed as something to be both exploited and condemned. But despite the industry's resistance, more and more female rappers are taking control of their sexual agency. They are pushing back against the narratives that have historically silenced them. Even when they know the backlash, it's inevitable. The question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we support these female rappers without allowing the industry to exploit them? And how do we as listeners challenge the double standards we see in music? That is my conclusion, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. So, thank you.